she introduced me to photography, and so I'm really happy now to introduce her after all these years. I think all of you know she's an acclaimed photographer, filmmaker, scriptwriter, mother, wife, everything all rolled into one, and a great friend. So welcome, Soni.
Thanks. Thanks, Ketu, and thank you all of you for coming. I don't know exactly what a workshop is. This has been labeled as a workshop. The only thing I can do is take you through my personal journey of why I made this book. So this is what I'm going to do. I published 2 editions of my book, Parsi, The Photographic Journey, and I'm going to speak to you about why I self-published it and how I did it, and in the process perhaps inspire some of you to do the same. And I'm also going to go off on a tangent sometimes and show you photographs that are not completely related to self-publishing because this is a photo festival. And at the end, we'll throw it open for conversations and question and answers and whatever else. So to start at the very beginning, in my case, that was 1980 in New York City. I had transferred from Columbia University to the graduate program in cinema studies at NYU because NYU had a photo department and Columbia didn't. And I always did both things on the side by side, film and photography. And both as an undergraduate and as a graduate, I wasn't so much interested in taking formal photography courses as I was in fashioning my own independent course and getting credit for it. And using the darkroom, that was my main thing. So the independent course I created for myself at NYU was an examination of my Parsi past, both in words and pictures. So there was a great wealth of material in my family because we've had successive generations of photographers and I had lots of photographs that I could choose from. So I collated them and I made them into this folder, a kind of loose leaf folder on kind of thick paper on which I had stuck the pictures. And it was accompanied by an academic text that I won't bore you with. So these are some of the pictures and these were, I think, the earliest kind of inspiration, though I didn't know it then, for my book. So I divided this portfolio, and which I've just, please dim the lights. Thanks, Dad. Way of showing them to you, but I photographed them on my bed a few days ago after I dug it out of my cupboard. So this picture is actually interesting. It's Field Marshal Sam Maneksha's wife in the middle as a young girl with her family, and I guess it's in the Eiffel Tower. And the reason I have this photograph is because she was a cousin of my grandmother's. This is my granduncle who was a wicketkeeper, Khurshid Mehrongji, leaving to go to play a test match in England in 1936, and the entire family, including my grandmother at the back, has come to see him off. This is my extended family, not my extended, my family and my great-grandfather, and taken by a family photographer, Jahangir Tarporewala, who had his own studio. And my family has great stories of how they had to pose for him endlessly because, of course, at that time it was very low light, very slow shutter speeds. And his particular way of making people pose for photographs was in this kind of 3 triangles. And both my grandfathers are in this picture, and these are both sets of my grandparents, my mom and her family on the left, and my dad has a baby on the right, again taken by Jahangir Tarapur. These are some couples, and this person is not related to me, a family friend of my grandmother's. Again with the family motor car. This is my mother's sister and my great-grandmother, who, as you can tell, was quite a formidable woman. This picture on the left was taken on the balcony of the house I grew up in, a cozy building, and I made a photograph that you'll see later that's in my book on the same balcony. Both my grandfathers are in this photograph. They were brothers, my parents are cousins, and that's my grandfather as a graduate. Now, both my grandfathers and their brothers were the first to get an English language education, first to go to college, and they were madly in love with books. And when I became a publisher, I couldn't help thinking that they would have been really thrilled about that because they instilled a real love of books in me, and I still have a great collection of that. Um, the next period is 1950 to 1965, and in the paper I was talking about how both posing for the camera changed and the content also changed, because now the camera went out and became part of daily life. It was not so formal. Um, the camera became part of family fun, and these are my dad's cousins fooling around. This is my mom and her sisters, and the lady you saw in the sari before has now started wearing slacks, as we called them at that time. And this is, I think, swinging 60s. That's my mother on the far right. This is my father's friend, photographed by him, photographed by my father, and this is my dad, and he doesn't remember who took that picture. These photographs for me were really interesting because they were a real departure from photographs in the past where you pose formally, where you never smiled, and in the past you'd never cut off an arm or a limb in a photograph, and now these were almost, they're very contemporary looking, these photographs. It's my Navjot. And then I ended it with 1980 with the present, which was the present at the time I made this album. And these are my photographs that really don't have to do with family, but a kind of extended family of Parsis. These were taken in Udwara, seaside pilgrimage / holiday place. So some of these photographs ended up in my book. This was Towers of Silence. So this was, one second, submitted it, got my MA from NYU in cinema studies and returned to India and began working as a professional photographer. What sense did that make? None really, but I've always loved studying cinema. I got a scholarship to indulge myself, but I didn't want to teach, didn't want to be a critic, and I didn't want to be a filmmaker because of the hustle and the drive, both of which I did not possess at the time. So one nickname for me used to be rudderless ship. But photography I'd always loved. With photography, there was just me and my one small camera. Shortly after I returned to Bombay, it was Mumbai, not Mumbai then, I met the legendary photographer Raghubir Singh. And my friend Meera Naya introduced us long distance. I remember meeting him in someone's office at Nariman Point, and I took with him to show a selection of photographs, at that time only black and whites, 11 by 14, that I had made myself. So I'm going to show you some of those photos I showed him then. I also showed him a lot of photos that eventually ended up in my book and that I'll show you later, so I won't repeat them here. This was taken in Newark, New Jersey, where I lived at the time because I was too broke to live in New York City, and I lived in a Portuguese neighborhood. So I took a series of photographs in my neighborhood. This is taken in Foix in the French Pyrenees. It's market day. This is at a Parsi function at Brabant Stadium. This is a legendary Kudi Sirvai, which is accordion. He was a great Parsi institution, played at all the weddings and the Navjots. This is also in our village in the French Pyrenees, and I was fortunate to spend the summer there, and it was just full of old people because all the youngsters had left to go to the city, and they'd only come back for holidays to the village. At the time, this was one of my top of the pops photographs. It's a kid at a fete in the village. Every Saturday they would have a fete in different villages. So Raghubir looked through my eclectic assortment of photographs and told me that I should do a book on the Parsis. He said that I had unique access, I had a personal point of view, and that it hadn't been done before. So that's when the idea to make a book first germinated. It reached its culmination 20 years later and at the turn of the century, but sadly Raghubir was not around to see it because he passed away suddenly in 1999. Besides putting me on this path, he also got me started shooting in color. Before that I was only shooting in black and white. He would loan me lenses and gift me his film rolls left over from various foreign assignments. You have to remember in those days that photography was a really expensive proposition. Film rolls were expensive, processing was expensive, and every frame counted, and you never knew what you had got till you had processed the film and seen it many days later often. So I used to show him the work in progress whenever he was in town, and I always sought his honest opinion and sometimes feared it, more often feared it. Then Salam Bombay happened, and I had one of those turning point moments that a lot of American screenwriting theorists are very fond of. My life completely changed. It was my first screenplay, it was our baby, and it was all consuming, and I thought I'd just show you some Salam Bombay pictures, why not? So this is Chai Pong, who plays the main role, and I took this picture. They were fooling around, this Raghuveer Yadav's feet, and they were fooling around on set between takes, and this photograph became one of the posters. This is the sound man, boom man Neil, on a street in Kamatipura. We cast him in the film as a hash-buying foreign sucker. This on the left is the real Chai Pao, who I based the character on. He used to live at Grand Road Station. This is both friends with their dogs. This is the kid Ramesh, who plays the mental kid in the chiller room. I'm still very much in touch with him. He's a father of 2 children now. This is again the sound department at Grand Road Station. This is Raghuveer Yadav taking a break from playing dead. And this is the character Bernard, who played the youngest kid in the gang, Kira. He is now works for Panavision, lives in LA. The cinematographer adopted him, and he's married. He has 2 kids. His was the only life that changed drastically. So Salam Bombay was a hit beyond our wildest dreams. Happy not to have to make a living, miserable living from trying to do non-commercial photography. I was very happy to embark on a new career as a screenwriter. So photography took a back seat, and my book was placed on the back burner for many, many years. And at the ripe old age of 37, I got married to Dr. Firdaus Partiwala. So I was writing screenplays. The only photography I was doing was shooting my kids. And my sister-in-law jokes that between my father and me, my kids' every waking moment has been recorded for posterity. She may well be right. Anyway, Firdaus kept goading me, urging me, pushing me to complete what I had begun, to get that book out before my slides caught fungus or somebody else did it, whichever came first. And then there was a whiff of another Parsi book, and that did it. I woke up from my slumber, took out the book from cold storage, and started working on it again. So the first step was to make a book proposal or a dummy. Making a dummy in the 90s was not as easy as it is now when everything is digital. In those days, the hardest part was how to reproduce color slides on paper cheaply and well. Thankfully, at that time, there were Xerox machines that did an okay job of copying slides, so that's what I did. I did the round of publishers, and everywhere I went, I heard the same refrain over and over again. Sure, we'll do it, but help us find sponsors. I nearly went with one publisher. They had assured me that I had full control. They print in Singapore, basically told me everything I wanted to hear. But I always had some kind of reservation, some inner reluctance, skepticism, because this had been my baby for so long. It meant too much to just hand it over and then hope for the best. In the context of finding sponsors, I met Zarir Kama, the CEO of HSBC Bank, who turned out to be one of the book's many angels. I'd known him since the 70s. He used to be a student at St. Stephen's. He was also really interested in theatre. We always had much to talk about. And he reminded me when we met that he had always urged me to do a book on the Parsis. And he assured me that he would, on behalf of the bank, order copies, and he told me he'd introduce me to other CEOs. At this point, I figured that if I was doing all this work for a publisher, why should I not do it for myself? And that's where the self-publishing thing kicked in. My good friend, designer Aurobind Patel, was game. He's married to my other good friend, Ketaki, who introduced me. And anyway, Aurobind was and is a very reputed designer who had redesigned the London Times and been the art director for The Economist, among his many accomplishments. So that's all I needed, I thought, or on his computer. In the old days, you needed a publisher, you needed the art department. but now with desktop publishing, they were kind of redundant. So I took the leap with my heart in my mouth, um, said no to the publisher, and proceeded to be my own publisher. At that time, another publisher tried to scare me and said, but you're doing it by yourself, how will you find an ISBN number? And I panicked and I said, oh my God, is this something that I don't know about? But then I found out that it's really simple, and that was complete bullshit. So this was my logo, Good Books, that Aurobind designed. It's my addition to the trio of Zoroastrian teachings: good words, good thoughts, good words, good thoughts, good deeds. And my fourth edition is Good Books, the fourth necessity. So, having been in the movie business, I resented the perception that when you self-produce a film, it's called independent filmmaking. But when you self-publish a book, it's called vanity publishing. Why is this? So since I was making a book, like my friend Meera makes her independent films, I took that model as my own, on a much smaller scale, of course. I pre-sold the book like one would a film. So who did I pre-sell it to? All the same people that publishers sell to. Very often, companies and corporations buy books in large quantities to give to their customers, especially on occasions like Diwali. This is what I learned, and this may be very elementary to a lot of you, and I apologize if it is, but for those of you who don't know it, here are some things that I learned. You have to price the book at 5 times your cost, and by cost is not just the cost of printing, but your cost of making the book, the photographs, the designer, everything else that is your cost. You have to price it 5 times over that, because distributors will take 50 to 60% off your selling price. So if you're selling a book for 100 rupees at a bookshop, you will only get 50 or 40 rupees back from that sale. This is, of course, everyone knows this, but the more books that you print in one go, the cheaper each book will be. Books printed in Hong Kong, Singapore, China are cheaper than India. This used to be the case, I think it still is. India has very high duty on imported art paper. This is why printing in India becomes, thank you so much, becomes expensive. It's not the printing, it's the cost of the paper. And the cost of bulk shipping to India is really minuscule. And it's built into the price that is quoted to you by the printer. So the price that you get is the total price of printing as well as shipping to India. And the last bit of news, which was I always am very grateful to Nehru for, is there's no import duty on books in India, thanks to Chacha Nehru. This is something it was a law that he made, and I am forever grateful to him for that. It was a very enlightened law as far as I'm concerned. Which is why also we don't pay tax on books in bookshops. So, besides that, I had to make a few crucial decisions. Size of all these decisions impact price. What's the size of the book? Inches by inches. Number of pages, what kind of paper are you going to use, number of pages. I'm sorry I repeated that, but it is actually very important, but it's a mistake to have repeated it. How many photographs, which will again impact your price, and which printer you're going to use and where. At the same time, I had to find out a storage place to store the books and find a distributor. It's very, very essential, the storage space, especially if you live in Bombay, because as you know, space is at a premium there. And if there's one thing I've learned, at least being a Bombay person, is that if I ever do a book again, I'm going to do it in miniature, not the size that I did. So I decided the first time around on a Japanese press in Hong Kong, Dynapon, thanks to advice from Chinu Mehrotra, Charles Correa's daughter, who had done a book for her father. She advised me and said, get the pre-press work, that is the scanning work and the printing work, done by the same person, because otherwise you'll be caught between the two and they'll be blaming each other. And she was so right with that advice. So I did all my pre-press at the same press that I printed the book, which was Dynapon in Hong Kong. So I got quotes from Dynapon based on which I could price my hypothetical book, Yet Unborn. I consulted my other angel, the late Mr. Shanbag of Strand Bookstore. His belief was that he preferred to price them low and have larger sales rather than price them high and have a more exclusive sales. And I agreed with that philosophy. So this is what I came up with. This is, of course, mind you, all hypothetical. There was no design, there was no book, but I had to make all these decisions in order to make a book proposal, in order to go out to try and get free sales in order to print the book. So this was my proposal. I was going to make an 11 by 11 inch book, 252 pages, 180 photographs. I was going to price it at 1,800 rupees. This is the price in bookshops. I was going to offer a 50% discount for advance sales over 200 copies. And for anybody who bought 200 copies or more, I was going to give them individual branding, logo, message on the first page. Now the way you do is that, the individual branding, is that you leave a blank page in the beginning of the book. And if it's over 200 copies, then the press will do that for you. And if it's less than 200 copies, I had them screen printed by a screen printer who broke open the shrink wrap, screen printed it, and then shrink wrapped it again. So I discovered, I'm not really good at maths, but thank God I got it right this time, that if I pre-sold a certain number of books, those pre-sales would finance the book's printing. So then Aurobind and I sat on the book in his very steep Jobsian office full of papers and books, a lovely creative mess, something that I'm very comfortable with as well. And he's a quiet genius, and under his deft touch, the book began to take life. I came up with the format for the book first. So then I had to fit my pictures to the format I had come up with rather than the other way around. I don't quite remember why I did it that way, but I did. So I had to come up with choose 180 pictures to go into the book. I wish I had taken a picture of Aurobind working on the book at the time. I didn't, but this is what he looks like now. He's a sweetheart, as Ketaki will testify. So, in my pre-screenplay days, I had always thought I needed somebody else to write the text, but this time I had more confidence to do it myself. So I wrote a lengthy introduction that was part personal, part historical, part academic, and I hit upon the format for the text for the rest of the book after I photographed Sam Manekshaw and interviewed him. So the book is divided into 8 chapters. It's got a very non-academic text. A lot of it is interviews. And I like to think that the text is informative without being dry and boring. The photos have extended captions, excellently designed by Aurobind. And I was able to say a lot in those captions, and yet the way he designed them is they're really unobtrusive. And so the larger picture that I wanted to have in the book was that it's a book about Parsi voices and Parsi faces. Visually, I had to go out and photograph. I had to fill in the missing parts, photograph what I needed to give the book as much breadth as possible, make it as complete a portrait as possible. Since nothing had been done before this, since mine was the first book of its kind, I didn't feel right about just including photographs that were quote-unquote artistic, that were primarily as good photographs. So the book is a combination of 3 things, I think. It's a historical record, it's a personal book, and it's also, for me, photographs that work well as photographs outside their documentary content. Now I'm going to show you some images from my book. It's a random selection of 30 or so in color and black and white that I took from, in this selection, the span is 1980 to 2000 and to 2000. This was the cover of my first edition. It's a boy at madrasa where kids learn to become Parsi priests, but they also get a regular education as well. This was taken at Marine Drive. It's the day and water of water divinity Ava. This is Ratan Modi in his father's studio, Modi Studios. At one point, it's not there anymore, but when I took the picture, it was the oldest running studio in Bombay. And that huge, large camera was used by his father to take photographs of the national leaders during our independence struggle. He also had a very interesting, huge glass negative of the inauguration of the Taj Mahal Hotel in 1900. And he told me many years later, this was a few years ago, that he personally wanted to gift it to the Taj, but on one condition, he had to meet Ratan Tata and hand it over personally. So I knew his secretary, Mr. Tata's secretary, and after much to and froing, we got that appointment. We went with the glass negative. We waited outside, had tea, and then he handed it over. I took pictures, and he was really, really happy. It's just an aside. This is my darling grandmother. One of the few photographs with a long lens. I think I borrowed my father's long lens for this because at the time, I still do, I still prefer 50, 35, 28 rather than long lenses. This photograph was taken on the balcony where I grew up in Gwalior Tank. It's called Cozy Building, and this is the same balcony where I showed you that picture of my grandfathers with their mother, and that's my grandfather at the end. That was his other brother, and this was a typical scene at home every evening. This is the neighborhood fire temple below my house. This was taken in Udvada. I was very friendly with these two ladies who lived in this house, and I was resting in the afternoon. I spent the day with them. I was resting in the afternoon in the easy chair, and I had the camera on a tripod from before, and I opened my eyes and I saw this, and I took this picture. It's one of my favorites because it feels like a kind of cinematic image to me. This is a ceremony, a prayer ceremony for the dead in a fire temple. This is my grandfather getting his pens repaired. It was his favorite excursion into the business district of Flora Fountain. This is outside an Irani restaurant called B. Merwan at Grand Road Station. This is a boy in Navsari. Again, this is on the day and the festival of water, Ava Yazat Parab it's called, when Parsis go to any body of water to pray and throw coconuts and flowers into the sea. This is my grandmother at home praying with the television set on. This was taken a long time ago, so the TV is black and white. And I think it was only Doordarshan at that time. Again, same situation, praying at Marine Drive. From the sacred to the profane. This is at the race course. I think this woman is about to say shit. This is at Kepaki and my dear friend Rashid Irani's Irani restaurant called Brabon. This was at the Godrej typewriter factory. I don't think they have it anymore. And this very conscientious Parsi worker was listening to the typewriter while his friend was teasing him about working so hard. And I titled this in my book that Parsis love to laugh. I always thought that this couple were father and daughter, and then Rashid, who lives next to them, said no, that they were husband and wife actually. He was a lawyer who passed away, and she came to my book launch dressed in the same sari, which was very sweet. This is Cyrus Oshidar. I call him the king of comedy, creative head of MTV at the time. He's left now. Buying fresh fish, evening's catch in Udwada. Again, MTV, Shanaz Treasury. At a Navjot, after the Navjot. mother and son at Marine Drive. And this is Rashid Irani in his restaurant. This was taken in the 80s, and unfortunately the restaurant was sold, and lots of Irani restaurants are disappearing, and both Gitu and I, we really miss it because it was our adda, where we just, when we were passing, we'd stop by, and he always gave us tea and a Coke and things to eat. And he's an amazing person. Rashid used to sit behind the till of his restaurant, but he's really, really self-educated in film and poetry, the most obscure kind. He's also a film critic and a wonderful person. This, I think, birthday celebrations in our house, in a fire temple, father and kid. A young priest training to be a priest plays a video game. And this is, of course, our Apro Zubin Mehta, who we all love dearly and collectively think he belongs to all of us. Okay, so the book was designed and I was able to finance the print run with my pre-sales. But I was so stressed out at the time that my neck, one day I woke up in the morning and I found that my neck was frozen at this angle, I kid you not. And I was like this for 2 weeks. I had to wear a brace, etc. It was purely stress, and I've never been as stressed for anything, any film, anything, as I was with trying to get out this book. I had to go to Hong Kong twice, the first time for the pre-press scanning, then for the print run. And I was on a permanent high because the press never sleeps, and neither did I. Again, thanks to Zari Kama, the Oberoi Hotel launched the book with considerable style. That's Zari Kama on the left, and this is Ratan Modi, who the old photographer who came for the launch. I found a storage place, Parsi lying in hospital, which is held no babies except my own. I took this picture a few days ago to put in the slideshow, but it's all spruced up and done up now because now people have used it as a film location. It started with the film that I made, Little Zizou. After that, it kind of caught on, and Amir Khan shot there, etc. So now they painted the door, and it looks presentable. But when I put the books in, it was really disused. It was quite decrepit, and of course, it was not a running hospital at all. And I rented one of the rooms, and this is Hussein, who has a water business from the compound, the well in the compound. And he helped my father. Together they rat-proofed and pigeon-proofed one room in the hospital. So that's when so I went to the docks to pick up my books. This is my first edition, and my heart just stopped when I saw the huge mountain of books that had come in and that had to be stored and had to be distributed and had to be sold. Anyway, thanks to Hussein, who has a lot of trucks at his disposal, thanks to his water business. We piled them into his truck and we used to go around the city. First I had to deliver them to all the sponsors, and then I had to distribute them in bookshops. I had no distributor in Bombay because I didn't need one. I used to supply bookshops myself, but I got IBD to distribute my books outside Bombay. Then I had another angel in America called Tamina Dawa, who helped me publicize and sell the book in America. This is, I know you can hardly see her, but I put this slideshow together at the last minute, and I tried to scan and I couldn't scan, so then I just photographed. This is at the book launch that she organized in New York, and she got Rahul Khanna to be the chief guest, and he very sweetly agreed. In 6 months between pre-sales and after-sales, my print run of 5,000 was sold out. So then, cut to 2004. I won't bore you with reasons why I decided to do a second edition, but in a nutshell, I wanted the books to be easily available outside India. FedExing 10 books at a time to cousins' US basements was not a cost-effective way of distributing in America. So Tamina urged me, begged me not to self-publish again. So I decided to go to the Frankfurt Book Fair, like countless photographers before me, in search of an international publisher. So I did my homework, I consulted people who had gone before me, like my dear friend Pablo, wrote to people, made appointments, and despite all this preparation, I was really dreading the ordeal. My husband had to literally push me out the door. So I went around this huge fair with my one solitary book on a subject nobody had heard of or gave a damn about, except for the one crucial person that I did meet. His name was Peter Mayer. He was the only person at the fair who knew about Parsis. He used to be the head of Penguin Publishing till he left to start his own imprint called Overlook Press. And he agreed to co-publish it with me. So this is the Overlook Press logo. And I took it as a sign because winged bulls are part of Zoroastrian mythology, and this was a winged elephant. The other excellent thing at the fair for me was making contact with other printers and realizing that Dai Nippon had really overcharged me. So I made a lot of contacts, and after writing to them all, I decided on another press in Hong Kong called Paramount Press. Again, I did a print run of 5,000. I replaced a few photos, I added to the acknowledgements, I changed the jacket, used a different image, used different paper. And 2,500 would be shipped to New York to Overlook Press, and 2,500 came to Mumbai. Again, to be stored at Parsi Langan Hospital, but this time also available in America, in bookshops and online at Amazon and other online booksellers. This edition was launched at Crossword, and this is 3 Bombay ladies photographers, Ketaki, Sheena Seppi and me. And I was very lucky that Sudhara Kolve was there at the launch, and he took these wonderful pictures, and I have them as digital images, which is why I'm not showing them to you in that weird format. This is my husband and me, and this is Meera Masi taking a picture, and this is 3 musketeers launching the book. Pawan needs no introduction. And so it was a dream launch. It's now 7 years later. I'm sort of kind of now getting to the end of my stock finally. I've given up my room at Parsi Langan. I've brought 8 books here with me. Again, thanks to Pablo who suggested it. It didn't occur to me. And I'm going to sell them to all you guys if anyone's interested at a 50% discount, autographed copies. My dear friend Pablo suggested this, and thanks Pablo for that suggestion. So that's actually the end of my story. It's the analog version of publishing, if you will. Now there are a lot more options and we can discuss them. There's digital publishing. And my friend Tamina Davo actually wrote to me on Facebook yesterday saying that this is what she said. She said, Soni, I'm sure you've already seen this, yesterday's New York Times on self-publishing. And there's an upcoming self-publishing expo in New York City. Lots of changes in self-publishing over the past 5 years, but you are way ahead. And so I checked out the article, and it's very interesting because now Amazon is taking over and is pushing publishers out of the equation, dealing directly with writers and having great success. So publishers might well be actually a dying breed these days. Let's see. To give you an idea of cost, into 2011, I contacted a printer in Bombay and asked him for some quotes, and here they are. I gave him the same specs of my book, 252 pages, and as you can see, I asked him for 3 sizes, 11 by 11, which is what my book is, 8 by 8 and 5 by 5, and you can see what a huge difference there is according to the quantities you print and the size you print at. So I need glasses, I can't see, but I think the largest price, the most expensive is 829, and the cheapest, if you print 5,000 copies at 5 by 5, is 100 something. So that's the kind of rate you're looking at depending on the size and depending on the quantities. I also looked up, again thanks to Pablo, a lot of online sites called like Lulu and Cinnamon, where you can actually not do it this way, but print and publish limited amount of copies as and when you need them. So if you're going to make a sale of 2 books, you can publish 2 books and send them off. So that way you don't need to store them, and you don't need to make that initial huge outlay of money that you have to if you publish this way. that's the end of my spiel. I hope it was informative, and can we have the lights please and open it up for...
Could you talk about e-publishing, what the Kindles and the iPads have been doing? Because there's a lot of self-publishing going on the web right now.
Yeah, I'm not really qualified to talk about it because that's not the route that I took, and I have actually not been keeping up with publishing. But and I also figured that this audience of young people would actually be more knowledgeable about that than this old fogey is. So if you know something about it, could you tell us?
Not really. I mean, as much research as I guess anybody else has done. Kindle, there's a lot of Kindle stuff available that Amazon can publish directly, and they charge you a certain percentage on sale. Plus, there are a lot of other formats which are available for e-publishing. There is an Indian software, I'm forgetting the name, who offer a publishing module as well as a link up to all formats. They convert to all formats, and that's how. So that's my limited knowledge on it.
Okay. Pablo, you know anything more about this? That you can enlighten us?
Looking at more the print and demand.
Oh.
Where anybody can just put up an ebook and they tell you the format, and it's a really simple stage and process by which you can do it. You can sell it anywhere in the world, and people can even actually download a few pages and then go through it and decide if they want to, buy the whole thing. And it's a really simple process to buy the whole thing because the money transaction happens through PayPal. So I have a friend in Goa who actually just put up his book a week ago, and he's already, I think, getting sales. So you don't need a publisher. You don't even actually need to have the book properly designed. You can just put like a mock cover image. You can do it the way you want to,
Right.
and you just put it up online. There's no cost as such. I think a margin of the sales might go to them. I
Right.
can find out the
Right.
details.
Yeah, but this would be more for text-based. It
Yeah.
becomes trickier when it's photos.
No, but then they have, like I said, I'll send you the link. They have different formats through which you can view it. So you can view it through PDFs and stuff, which I suppose will be better for text, as against Word documents, which would be better for text. I mean, PDFs would possibly be better for images.
You know, when the Kindle and iPads first came out, I looked into the possibility of putting my book as an ebook because I really wanted to reach a lot of people outside the conventional way. And at that time, they said that the Kindle and the iPad were not really, maybe not the iPad, it was the Kindle at that time, were not really suited to looking at, their photographic reproduction wasn't that good at that time, so I gave up that idea. But if that's improved, I think that I would actually really love to put my book up as an ebook as well.
Standing for a very long time. Please relax. Okay, now I want you to scare us with this ISPR.
ISBN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, please scare us. I want to.
Actually, all you Delhi people have nothing to fear because the ISBN office is in Delhi. So all you have to do is...
Go online, you can fill out a form and apply.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, that publisher was a real so-and-so because it was so simple and he had me so scared.
Okay. Now you also mentioned that you went to IBH
Yeah.
to distribute it out of
IBD.
Bombay.
IBD.
Sorry.
Yeah.
IBD to distribute out of Bombay.
Yeah,
But you did it yourself in Bombay.
yeah.
Will IBD had no issues on that? Like generally they take a 360 degree to the entire distribution,
Yeah.
rather than saying this, not this territory and not that.
I can't remember, but I think I went to them after I had exhausted Bombay.
Okay.
I think I didn't go to them at the beginning.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I think so. But now that's not the case because bookshops won't take from an individual publisher.
Yeah, that was my
At
next
that
question.
time they did.
Uh,
Now I think they say come through a distributor.
Okay.
They won't take single titles. Previously I used to actually supply to Crossword stores themselves. Now Crossword has a holding place where all their books go and then from there they are supplied to the shops. I used to go directly to the shops. They call me and say, okay, can we have 5? And I go and give them 5 like that.
Thanks.
Yes, G.
money did you make? If your mathematics was right,
Which is not.
you should have. No, but I mean, so what were the pitfalls or
See,
what
the
were
thing
the
is,
plus?
Pablo, the thing is, Pablo, that I never counted into my cost the years I put into it, okay? My cost that I calculated was done in a very amateur way. It was just the cost of designing, which was not much, thanks to Arvind, and it was the cost of printing. I did not count my time, I did not count the money I spent all these years. So how do you calculate that? I haven't. All I know is that I made up the cost and a little over. Yeah, I had a really personal project, but otherwise it's a hell of a lot of work. It's more work than a film. And I produced this book from my tiny house, and my file cabinet was 2 drawers under my bed. I didn't have a secretary, I didn't have an assistant. You know, between my father and I, we were doing everything. And it's not easy, it's really time consuming, it's a real headache. So you have to really think carefully before going into it, and it's worth it if it really means a lot to you. But if it's a series of books, or you know, I know every book means something. Maybe that's not the right thing to say. Every book does mean something. So, but anyway, just be sure before you get into it, be sure with open eyes that what you're getting into.
Could you just elaborate on that, on the idea of a personal project, since we are on the topic?
I said the wrong thing, because everything is personal, whether you're photographing your family or whatever. So I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. It's just that I had done this for so long, you know, and it did have a huge, for me, really personal element, in the sense that it's my family and extended family, etc. That to me it was kind of a different thing, and that's why I was very hesitant about giving it away to somebody.
I just wanted to comment on the ebook subject, because what you need to know about ebooks, Kindle and stuff, is that you cannot master the layout, because ebooks are basically XML files that are rendered on the Kindle or the iPhone or the iPad or whatever. And the trend is going towards iPads today with 200 million iOS users out there. So there are plugins now for Photoshop, for InDesign, made by companies like Woodwing or things like that. What you need to know is that to end up on an iPad, you need to build an application. And either you're a Macintosh developer, and you can do it yourself, which is a very complicated thing, or you have frameworks which Woodwing offers, or Adobe starts to offer. Actually, I think Adobe has just bought Woodwing. But there is a cost to that, because they cater on the fact that you're selling out your book to 200 million people, potentially, and you're going to make money with it. So the cost of getting on the iPad is quite expensive. Just wanted to comment on that.
Okay. But you can now do it for the iPad. You can do photo books for the iPad.
Yes, you can actually, but it's an application. But it's a whole process, because you have to take account of the orientation of the iPad, if it's vertical or horizontal. So basically, you're doing twice the layout, and it's a bit of a complicated thing. But you can, if you have a layout done in InDesign,
Right.
you can bring it quite easily to the iPad.
Right.
And actually, they're quite smart, because they give out the plugin, so you can build your whole thing and get excited about it. And then when you have to put it on the iPad, actually, it costs you quite a lot, because they build the app for you and publish it on the App Store. But it has a cost, so you have to be careful.
But as everything, I'm sure it'll get cheaper as time goes by, right?
Yeah, I'm sure, but it's still based in America, so it's...
Right.
Pardon my ignorance, but do you see photo books on iPad?
Yeah, sure. There's a tremendous market out there.
I mean, that's one market here.
Into self-publishing. You know, the problem with most of us out here is we are photographers and we are not business people. So, you know, yeah, and you know, that's the real battle, because I mean, I've done about 10, 12 Frankfurt book fairs. I work with publishers who, like IBH, they did my very first book. And you know, you come to a point where you love your work so much, okay, you're open to critique, you're open to outsiders, editors, and all that stuff. But then, you somehow just can't convince the publisher that, this is the kind of book you want, because they know the commercial angle, they know what will sell, what will distribute, and they know how to price it. And pricing is something which, forget your time and forget your film or your digital or whatever it is. It's a lot of legwork, it's years of work put together. So, as Pablo said, you never make money out of this stuff. It's your personal stuff. So if you're not making any money out of it, you want to make sure that personal vision is actually sustained. And that's where the real battle happens when you work with publishers. And I think the biggest blessing, as that gentleman mentioned, that today you can do a lot of stuff with technology, e-publishing and all this stuff. And we were talking at breakfast earlier, there's a lot of stuff you can do, what we saw with Anita Singh also. You can do personal projects which can be almost like portfolios, which can be much, much smaller. Because, big is dying, as you said, publishers are dying, and there'll be a time when people want to see your personal vision. You can go to Nehru Place, Prashant was saying there are places where they can actually print some stuff for you, maybe 200 copies or something. You can test market that. And many times what happens is, earlier we used to make dummies, and we would go to publisher to show what it is. And it always had a certain signature of yourself in terms of your design or how you looked at it. But it still was a dummy. But now you can actually print something of 10, 20 copies, and you can actually go to people and get a larger, view, or maybe it may get distributed or it may get published finally, So, that's...
It's not directly related to publishing. How did you handle the PR and the publicity for the books?
No, actually, I've been in films, right, for a long time, and so I've been interviewed a lot, a fair amount, and I've always, I feel like I don't feel like I'm on the other side of the camera. I feel like when someone comes to photograph me, that I'm more on the photographer side or the journalist side. That's where, that's how I came up. So I contacted people personally. I did a lot of legwork, and thanks to the film part of my life, I was able to. Thanks to the film part, I had a launch with Meera and Pavan, and I had Sudhara photographing it. So that's how I dealt with it.
One quick question.
Yeah.
What's your typical customer? Who buys your books? Who's your typical customer?
Obviously my one obvious customer was the Parsi, especially Parsis who live abroad and are always being asked, what is a Parsi and who are the Parsis? And they have to do is see this book. So I had a large market there. I had a large market of people in Bombay, because Parsis are very much Bombay institution, and everybody has their favorite Parsi in Bombay. So a lot of people who are not Parsis bought the books. Why is Pablo laughing? to give to people. So that was my typical.
So you would say they're more individual than corporates or hotels?
No, I pre-sold to corporates. Now again, I got lucky in a lot of ways. I was very fortunate that I had Zari Kama when I did this, who introduced me to other people. So that was very fortunate. The other thing is that the subject was such that they could give it out as a gift. But if it conceivably was some other subject that didn't make a good corporate gift, that avenue wouldn't have worked. So in my case, it did work. So it depends. I think it depends on the subject. But it's a good thing to know about. I didn't know about this before I did the book, that corporates do buy books in large quantities to give as gifts. I had no idea, because I'd never been on the receiving end of any corporate giving a book gift to me. So, yeah.
One more, sorry. Is it the photographs that attracts people to your books, or is it the significance of documentation of Parsi legacy? Is it the photographs that attracts the people, or is it the significance of the book itself?
I would hope it's both. But as I said, there's been no visual documentation of the community before this or since this as well. So I think it's that as well. But I'm the wrong person to ask, because I'm at the other end. So we should ask some people who bought the book.
No, what I meant was, what's the feedback you get? You say they're wonderful photographs, or is it great compilation, or what do you, what's
No,
the
the
feedback?
feedback I get is good. I was actually quite skeptical. I was prepared for a community reaction that was not fully positive, but it was a very warm reception. People responded very well to the photographs. It's also a document that is kind of frozen in time, and so a lot of these photographs have people who've since passed away. And I get a lot of people writing to me or coming up to me and saying, oh, you know, this photograph, this is my grandfather or grandfather's brother, and you know, he or she has died. And so a lot of people have that response as well. And since a lot of them are street photographs where I took a picture, I didn't know who the person was, and I don't know who the person is on my cover, the picture of the person, you know, whose back is to the, so there's that as well.
Parsi Panchayat. So did you have any issues with them? Basically because you know you're dealing with a community. So like I'm also facing that kind of little problem with my community. So I'm just trying to understand what was your issue.
Yeah, you know, at the time I did the first edition. It was completely fine. I mean, there was, I don't think Delhi people know too much about the Parsis, but I won't go into an explanation here, but a lot of weird things have been happening in the community since the year 2000, which is when my book came out actually. Before that it was fine. After that all kinds of madness has been going on, which is partly what my film that I made, Little Sisu, was about. So, since then, if I had made the book now, there would have been maybe a problem because of the various factions and political games, etc. But because I made it then and it was so well received, the second edition was not a problem. And in fact, the Parsi Panchayat is in charge of Parsi Langan Hospital. So I'm glad now that I don't have to deal with them anymore, because now it's a group of, I won't say what.
What kind of problems are you having?
The first major problem is, I hope everybody understands what Bora community is. I will.
He has to.
if he agrees to it.
There's no choice problem.
The first major problem is they don't let women to be shot in the frame, you know. They want it blurred, and I can't have a book with only man in the frame.
But do a Prabhudas style.
Hello,
Out of
excuse me.
focus.
I was the Sayedna's photographer for 1 year.
I know.
And I shot a lot of women.
Now they've become more
Maybe things
orthodox.
have changed.
Now they've become more orthodox.
What's the problem?
I know, I've seen that book. So that's one major issue. Like I really can't be having pictures of only men in the book.
Yeah.
Then there's no negativity to be shown in the picture.
Yeah.
So, of course, there is a richer side, there's also poor side. So they want everything very happy-going kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is not my,
Yeah.
which is not possibly anybody's style, where you have to just portray one side. I was just thinking what to
You know, your challenge is much, much, much more than mine.
absolutely.
Because we have no central pope figure like the Sadhnas. We are complete anarchy, you know. So your problem, and I think that it's even frowned upon, the photographic representation is also frowned upon, right? As being
No, as far as you put that
No.
in a wall, it's okay. Yeah. It's like you put Sayedna's picture on the wall, that's fine. But
Yeah.
beyond that,
Beyond that, personal photographs, except for identification, are not really.
no,
No?
it's not that bad. As of
Okay.
still now, one doesn't know
Yeah.
about the future.
Yeah. Yeah, so your situation is very different. And I completely sympathize with you.
Have you thought of joining the opposite camp?
Then I'm finished. Yeah, the history on Fawzan.
We'll make a book.
I just wanted to share a couple of things with some of you on print on demand. I don't know how many of you know of Blur Books, but that's an interesting place to go and look for those who don't. And they're constantly evolving the paper, the book cover, soft cover formats that they can offer. Blurb, you can download their software or you can download an InDesign plugin. I haven't really gotten into it, but this is from the research that I've done. They also do an online app for iPhones where you can upload videos. The only thing, the downside about print on demand is that it's much more expensive. But the upside is that as long as you upload everything and order one copy from them, they keep your book there at least for a year, if not more. They say they never delete it, but time frame. So depending on the size and number of pages, you can get a pricing and put it up and order one copy, and then it's made available to everybody else. Thanks.
It's not just that they don't delete it. No, I had self-published about one title, and I've got about 5 copies from Blurb. The Killer is the Freight to India from Blurb. Then I lost the file on my computer because my hard disk had crashed. And I wrote to them about 3 months ago to ask them if they can find the file, because I wanted to change some things in the original book and do it again. And they've sent it to me. It took them about a month to find the files, find a way of retrieving it from their wherever, but they sent it to me now. So it does work well. Except the costs are pretty prohibitive. Per copy, and the cost of trading it into India is really high.
What kind of costs are we looking at?
I don't remember, but if you look at a book, when you talk about self-publishing and a small book, and it wasn't a very big one, and a soft cover, it was costing about 1,500 rupees a copy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And plus freight. Including
Well,
freight?
what I'd done that time was, I have an aunt who lives in New York, so I got the books freighted to her. Because I remember the cost was almost equivalent, and this is about 4 years ago. I don't know if it's become any less now or not.
No,
I doubt very much.
Blurb is just not practical if you want to sell your books in India. Just not practical. I think Nishant here has published a book, and it's a small book, and it costs what, $50?
The book is, it's got 66 pages in that, and the hardcover version of that, it comes up to $47, just the book price. And you want to ship it to India, another $15 to $30, just depending on what kind of method of shipping you want, economical or trackable.
But there is another thing now, that's there is this HP's Indigo Press, which earlier was only good to make a dummy 1 or 2 copies. But somebody installing a machine in Bangalore, I'm sure there are those machines, larger Indigo presses, which are coming up in other cities as well, which they say is the costing is comparable to offset for about 200 copies.
Okay.
So you can just print 200 copies and then sell. So when you sell out those 200 copies, you can go to another edition of 200
That's
copies.
a great option, because
Yeah.
if it's 200 and it's offset prices, that's a great option.
The person who's putting up the press in Bangalore told me that he can match like a Pragati's price,
Wow.
not the other presses which are
Okay.
cheaper, but Pragati is that's one of the best.
Quality a bit suspect, I mean the colors are a bit garish.
In the current Indigo, that smaller Indigo machine, colors are a little funny, but you got to be very careful because it prints very quickly. 132 pages are printed like in 5 minutes. So, but the person who's putting it up told me the other day that he can match, and the colors are much better. Than
Blurb uses HP printers.
I mean, all print and demand mostly use HP Indigo.
I was quite happy with the quality of Blurb, and I'm talking about 4 years ago, so I would imagine.
But how do you check that? They started in America, now they have a European printing place, and now they're looking for somewhere in Asia. So that, print and demand is also the shipping. So
Maybe someone here should be looking at a collaboration with us.
Yeah, or a startup.
How did you check the colors, like for who used Blurb? Like if I use it from my laptop and there's a design made in my laptop and then we send it all over, like if you have printed from
Because we
Blurb.
don't
I mean,
trust your laptop
well-
colors in the first place.
Yes, so how do you check it? Like if I order a book, I won't know till it comes. Yeah?
They have color profile.
But they have color profiles, you
These are
match
things
with
you
your
all have to sort of get.
Even then I'm not sure, like, the way it looks
The
at
quality is pretty good. The quality is pretty. I think Nishant should be able to answer. He just printed some.
the quality is good. Actually, I have the copy of the book with me. I can show it to you later. But staying with Blurb, Blurb is evolving, and what they just launched last week is to have all your books converted to ebooks for iPad.
Oh.
It just launched yesterday, and what I figured out, I just logged in and checked what Blurb does it for every book that's every ebook for iPad that's sold. Blurb charges $1.99 as base price, and on that you can set any price, and that's your profit.
Sorry, I didn't understand the price. Say that again.
What Blurb does right now for ebooks, every book that's uploaded is sold as a print format. It's allowing the conversion of the book to iPad, iPhone, and even iPod Touch format as for the iBooks software. And what Blurb does is, like, if anybody wants to buy the ebook, you as a author can list it there, and for every book that's sold, Blurb takes a base price of $2.
Oh, okay.
And you can set any price over and above for your ebook.
Okay.
Page price? What page?
No, not page. The entire book.
Total.
The base price is $2 for ebook for iPad, and you as author can set a selling price over that.
And it is linked. You have to be doing a paper book too, and only then will they give you.
No, it need not be a. It's like you design the book using the Blurb's Book Smart software, not the PDF version, and you upload it, and you order one copy of an ebook, then it's there, the same model as what they had for print.
So is it sold by Blurb? How do they keep track how much it sells?
It's sold by Blurb, because Blurb offers the entire e-commerce solution.
So you sell it through them?
Yeah, and they send you the profits to PayPal every month.
They receive the money.
Yeah, they do that. But as you look at it, the publisher models are slowly coming in, because if people are buying from Blurb, Blurb just take the base price. But if your book is listed in the iTunes the software download, again Apple takes another 30%. So that publisher model is coming into it slowly.
Oh, really? Even with ebooks?
Yeah, it is.
No, I just saw an article in the morning. It was running out, of course, but I think Amazon's also going that route now. There was a small piece that they are getting the publisher out of the process, and they will be helping people to publish books. So I don't know if it's about photo books yet, or it's only about text.
No, they've already started. They have a 30% charge for each book sold through Amazon. And they also recommend, they have a very strong system of recommending products based on people's interests. So if you've bought books on photography or photographic equipment, they'll flash on your page that, okay, here's a new ebook that we can sell to you. So every time people click and buy, they get 30% and you get the rest, or whatever your agreement with them is. And they'll do their marketing for you and stuff like that. I think there are slabs beyond the 30% on how much you want them to market for you. It's like Facebook. The number of times they show your ad, they charge you even more. So it's based on volume of per impression kind of thing.
So the way this conversation is going, it seems that no one's interested in the traditional publishing of photo books, is it? We're not going to go to Penguin or go to Rolly Books or...
No, not you, but self-publishing. I'm interested in books, not interested in e-books, but I don't know anything to say. Just to ask a question, not here. One person interested in normal
You have something to say? Or
I think Soni has care all of
I didn't mean to. I meant to do just the opposite, actually.
As you said, with the death of the publisher, that is something that might happen in the future. Does the filtration process of the quality of the books, does that go down in any way? With the amount of self-publishing that may be available to everyone? If everybody goes...
It's like the net, you can find a lot of junk, but you can find good stuff as well, so...
There's a lot more finding to do there.
See, publishing a book is one thing, selling is completely another.
It's like photographs in some way.
Another issue altogether. So, there's no point in publishing. I wouldn't say there's no point, but like, okay, you put up your book and then one copy sells. It doesn't mean anything. So.
But having been to the Frankfurt Book Fair, you're just automatically assuming that just because the publisher is in the process, the end result is good, as opposed to self-publishing. Having been to Frankfurt Book Fair and seen the amount of junk that is published, you would rethink this about publishers. It's just because the publishers there doesn't guarantee, I think, quality of content.
Perhaps on a huge, large scale, you know, with the number of publishers that have been around, on a larger scale, it has had not an effect on the quality towards a betterment.
You know, the thing is that I think maybe I've not experienced this because I self-publish, but I would have maybe appreciated a good editor. And being in the film business, I know how valuable a good editor is. So yeah, that may be, you know, but again, it's hypothetical. So.
Hi, just want to check if there's anything similar to the Frankfurt Book Fair in India. Do we have a platform like that which is similar where publishers...
We do. I'm speaking because I've been publishing, but they tend to be very limited to publishers. So, for instance, at Trivandrum, there is a festival that happens every year, book festival, where they have a rights table. But it's essentially for publishers to negotiate rights with other publishers. So it's actually really very difficult if you're an independent artist and you're looking to get published. You just either have to, you know, go the traditional route, which is, you know, you send your manuscript in or you send in your proposal and you hope that somebody will look at it, you know, beyond the slush pile. Or the other thing is that you network and you just try and find out who the right people are. And like for instance, in terms of photo books, Rolly Books is considered to be one of the best because, you know, quality and all that. In terms of, yeah, unfortunately. But in terms of distributors, for instance, Variety Books is supposed to be very good for distributing coffee table books and photo books because they have a network. But I was actually going to say that in India, actually today, self-publishing is a bit easier because you don't even have to go through the distributor route simply because there's a larger nexus of online retailers and you can deal directly through them. You can just have your stock in your house and all your invoices then get billed to your house and they give you your cash. Either you do a cash on delivery, whatever, they pay you, or you do a credit billing at the end of every month, which they're all increasingly starting. And a lot of the online bookstores tend to prefer to deal directly with the person rather than doing it through. So, you know, you have Flipkart, you have Indie Plaza, you have like at least 20 of them. So it's actually much easier and they offer you very good service. Within 3 or 4 days, the book is shipped and it's free of cost. They even can import books from abroad for you as well. So it's actually a lot easier in that sense. You know.
But Flipkart I sell through Flipkart and they took a consignment of books from me.
That's good in a sense, because it's, like where I work, they pretty much come in every day and they take in the books. But now they're trying to shift to a credit system instead of the cash system. So I mean, there are just different options. And you don't necessarily. It depends on whether you're looking to have your book in a bookstore or whether you're happy with just selling it online. So, and bookstores, I'm learning, don't always guarantee that your book is up there. And payments are a real headache. They never manage to go through the distributor. You have to wait. And there's also something called the Independent Publishers Distribution Association. So, I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people can look to. Again, they're not very, very effective. I think their pay cycle is every 6 months. They pay you. They're based in Delhi, I think in Shahpujat, and but they're not fantastic. But it's an option available to independent publishers.
Thank you.
Soni, I wanted to understand the ratio of book being sold through your personal contacts versus being sold in the bookstore.
At my first print run, I pre-sold half my print run.
Okay.
And the other half went to bookshops.
Okay. And the second lot?
Second lot, first of all, it was divided because half went to. I didn't do any pre-sales for my second. It went just to bookshops, and I still have. The last of the lot.
Did you get returns from the first?
No, I sold.
So is there an issue in case if it doesn't get sold over a period of time, then they give it back to you?
Who's they?
This bookstore guys?
The distributors will,
Achha.
You know, Fazan, the most important thing to find is a storage space in Bombay. I can't emphasize that enough. Because
no, I know now. I have an address now. You have just told me.
Parsi like. Yeah, Saifi Mahal.
On Bell Road. In the mosque in Muhammad Ali Road.
Pablo, I know you don't like me.
You know, I would also go to Strand bookstall really helped me a hell of a lot. You know, and the nice thing about Strand is that they took books, like they took 700 books from me right at the beginning. They kept them. They didn't tell me you store them and we'll order them. They kept 700 books. They paid me on the spot. Of course, less than I would have got elsewhere, but they paid me on the spot, and I would go to Strand and do a deal with them.
Isn't there any Bora bookseller?
There isn't a Bora photograph.
When you were editing, how many people did you show your edits to? And each one must be having a different say in it. So, how did you finally go with this one? And also, when you were going for pre-sale, you were showing your book in the same format as it is printed, or it was some other format?
No, as I said, in those days it was very hard to make a dummy like it is now. So basically what I had when I went for pre-sales is I had a book proposal. In the book proposal was the jacket of the book. It was the specs that I showed you. It was a brief thing of what the book would contain. And then I had a lot of press stuff to impress them, because you have to do that, from past things. And then I had my dummy. Was really not a dummy, it was images that I had Xeroxed and were kind of in a folder. That was my book proposal / dummy. And your second question about editing, I showed my edit to photographer friends, Ketu, Pablo, Raghuveer. But it wasn't like a formal edit of the full book. First of all, the way I edited is I isolated the pictures that immediately stood out for me that had to be in the book. And then I think I looked at what was needed, etc., etc. It was a long, well actually not that long a process, because Aurobind designed it in record time and like a few months.
There's one thing about self-publishing is that at the end of the financial year, all the books that you have, they become stock in hand and you have to pay tax on it. Yeah, so got to be careful on that. So if you have like 5 lakhs worth book, it comes to your income. So even if you didn't earn nothing from it, even if you spend money, becomes income tax. It's stock in hand, and they pay tax on it, income tax on it. So that's one thing that you got to be careful.
Thanks for scanning for how do you solve that problem?
Nothing, you got to pay tax on it.
It's like an asset.
But you can write it off as a loss in so many years. Didn't sell.
So if you don't mind, I'll just steer this away from self-publishing, and I'd like to ask photographers who've had books published by publishers how that experience has been.
My very first book was an architecture book on Jaipur, and it's in, I think, 4th or 5th edition between IB Chaura's India Book House and St. Martin's Press. The first 2 editions, there was a little royalty arriving, and I don't know where it went in last 2. So that definitely happens. We were talking about it this morning, that maybe the trade-off can be, instead of a royalty, they can give you books, because you can distribute it or give it to your friends or whatever. But the big problem with large publishers, they've got so much of fine print in there, and the lawyers, and as individuals, we can't deal with it. It's such a battle always. So I decided I'm going to be a publisher myself, and going to Frankfurt Book Fair, I had some relationships there. So I did that, and I think I published about 4 books. They were my own books. Of course, half of them sit in my parents' basement because they never went anywhere. And some I sell it out of Amazon.
But distribution is the real key to it. It doesn't matter how you put it together, how much your money, resources, whatever goes through. I think distribution is the key to it, because as the world is becoming more, e-commerce is there, but we're still not touched by it, because e-commerce is very limited in this part of the world. And it's growing, of course, growing brilliantly. But if you can figure that out, nothing like going and distribute. If you live in big cities like Bombay, Delhi, if you have relationships with the bookshops, maybe like Crossword is a very good example. If you have a relationship with somebody, one person there, they can send you to their warehouse, and you actually go and dump the stock there, and then it's their responsibility how it's distributed. So it's a very tough one, and I think personally I feel that it's like big television or big anything big. I think publishing is also dying in many ways, and the good news is for individuals like us that between e-publishing to doing your what Prashant was saying, making really small little books, and you just distribute to people who have similar thought processes, and those are your audience, those are your buyers.
Actually, I didn't have a good experience at either Crosswords or Oxford Bookstore. I had a publisher, but my deal with the publisher was that instead of royalties, my lawyer suggested, since the royalties would stop and you'd never know, that I get my royalties in terms of numbers of books, and that I also get the right to sell in India. So with 3,000, which was my print run for the first and for the second, I got 300 books each. So I thought, oh, that's quite a simple thing. I can go out and plant them in all the bookshops. Except for Nalanda and Strand, where like Soni, I have a personal relationship with Mr. Shenby, and when I went to Crosswords, they said you have to go to their purchase manager, and the purchase manager and the retail manager has to decide whether my book fits into what they want. And the purchase manager is in Orbit Mall, and this is his phone number. So I, of course, religiously took the phone number down, but they just weren't even interested on the telephone. They hadn't seen it, nothing. They just said, they asked me to describe it, so I shouldn't have said black and white, but I said black and white book on Bombay, black and white book on twins. And he just said, no, sorry, we're not interested.
Yeah, sorry.
So my experience, there was no way they were going to take me to a warehouse. And mine are 300 books now, there's hardly any of that left, but they all lie under my bed at home. So.
Can I add a happier story here? Because I've had 2 books published by Penguin, and the first one I really had no complaint. So the second one, they didn't just publish my book, they insisted, they worked out that the foreword was written by Pete Guire, because they were trying to get a tie-up with HarperCollins in the US, where Pete Guire is a well-known writer. And HarperCollins, because of that, picked up 10,000 copies. Wow. So Penguin published 3,000 in India and for Asia, and struck up a deal with HarperCollins. So it depends a lot on who your publisher is. So much so that I was working on my 3rd book with them, but the people involved have left. And I don't want to do that book with anyone else at the moment.
So Penguin do photography books as well?
Well, you see, the end, which is not a very good one for Penguin, is that they're not very good marketeers of photo books. They're much better marketeers of text and literature. Yeah. So there's always an upside and a downside. The other thing I'd like to add
on that 10,000.
Yes, there is. But which is the point which Soni made, and I'd like to add that you can't add back time cost, and especially for a commercial photographer or something. If you're going to think that I spent that many days and I did that much effort, forget it.
Yeah, but
It doesn't make that kind of money for you. Yeah. No, I mean I got royalties, but if I was to compare it to how much I would have made if I had traveled for 3 months or 4 months or whatever I did over years to make pictures for that book, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
I would think a lot of it is really the quality of the fact that you have got your work in a book. If that makes you happy, then do books. But if and I'm sure people like Raghurai and Raghuveer Singh and all have made money out of the books, but they live off them. But
Yeah, he didn't make any money on it.
so, I mean, vanity publishing, to my mind, actually is a very good term, because at the end of the day, it pleases you to have a book with your work. And if you're not happy with it, then I'm sorry, then don't publish a book.
Yeah, I talk about distribution. I mean, I did this book called Ageless Mind and Spirit. I spent 8 years on that, documenting 400 people all over the country, and nobody was ready to publish it. So I published it, and I went to Variety and Om and all those guys, and they put it really beautifully because he said, I got a call from Khan Market, from whatever bookshop. This is like 7-8 years back, and they'll say, we need some books. मुझे एक बॉक्स भेज दो जयपुर का, एक दिल्ली का, एक ताजमहल का. And that's the way it works, because you get into such specialized process or projects that it takes a lot to. I mean, maybe it's changed a lot, but all I can say is that I can only sell it either through photoing, or otherwise it's Amazon. There's nowhere else I can put those books.
But how do you deal with Amazon? I had a problem when I did my first edition that Amazon wouldn't stock the books. They needed someone in America when someone ordered to then send individual copies.
They do stock, but it depends on what kind of title you have. I mean, I have a very tiny apartment, and my only place is my sleeping space in my apartment in New York. The rest is my books there. So whenever I do get an email, then somebody goes there and they send a box out. And as you said, it's just so expensive. Let's say if somebody orders books, if you're gonna FedEx it, I mean, it's ridiculous. The $100 book is gonna be $200, and there's no way you can sell that.
Flipkart is in India. They stopped my books. Yeah.
No, I have had a fabulous experience with Amazon. I think they're the finest. They're so professional, so good. Their reporting systems, their payment systems, it's fantastic. They do stock, but they take a tremendous amount of margin, and it's not. Really, you don't make hardly any money. You recover your cost because you have to send books at your cost, to their warehouse in wherever, Phoenix or wherever. But experience with them is as a vendor, has been great. Flipkart is very good. Flipkart is very good too, and they sell and they send you money. They send you an email saying that we have sold so many books. Send us an invoice and the money comes in. So that's very good. The problem are the big stores, chains, as Kirti said, the Oxfords and the Crossword. It's just difficult, so difficult to handle. So I just deal with small bookstores and online stores. What I'll be touching upon when I speak tomorrow is also that I'm using the social media, Facebook, to sell my new projects. So it's working quite good, which I will talk tomorrow.
No, it's not add to the
Flipkart, I think, from Unsung has taken 40% or so. Yeah, but the next book I'm doing, I'm going to offer only 35.
If I may add to that, friends.
Amazon is 45. Amazon US, Amazon UK is 55.
Amazon US, you did it through fulfillment charges.
Yes.
I think what.
You have to send it, ship it yourself.
I think there are two elements there. One is the distribution, the other is the promotion. And I think the publishers are not very good at promoting books, so that's something which, and especially with social media now, which is cheap and inexpensive virtually, you have to take charge of. Now, publishers are not. I mean, they don't have the kind of monies to be able to do that.
They don't even send out review copies to newspapers. They can't afford to.
Well, I tell you what, to be very honest, I think one of the reasons why the Delhi Photo Festival is proving to be a success is simply because of social media. So let's be awake to that and use it.
Okay, this question is slightly off publishing. It's more to do with photography. When people saw your books, both the books, and especially Parsi, did you get calls for selling your photos like as fine prints, and did you do that or?
I've had one gallery person want to buy them, but I have not really sold any of these prints. I don't know, there's something in me that is reluctant to sell them. I don't know why. I know it's kind of ridiculous, but I may have a show next year at which I might sell, but this is a big may. But so far I have not sold prints, and I have not wanted to sell prints. There's something about, I don't know, selling my grandmother that doesn't sit right with me. But then I think the other people in the photographs are also somebody's grandmother, so where do you draw the line? I don't know, it's confusing.
Institutional line.
Of photographs amongst Parsis? Are you kidding?
Of Parsis, it could be anywhere. It could be archive.
No, you know, we are so bad, Parsis are so bad at archiving stuff. Dadabai Navroji, the great stalwart's house is in rack and ruin in Navsari, and nobody's doing anything about it. So, no, there's no archive I can go to. Yeah.
Sister, let me just get your mic.
Hi, Soni. I have a small technical question. You mentioned that in the pre-sale lot of books, you would tuck in a individual branding logo kind of thing. I didn't really understand what that meant.
You see in the book, the way it was designed with this in mind is that when you open the book, there's one blank page before you have the title, etc. Right? I don't know what it's called, flyleaf maybe. Huh? Sorry?
The half title page.
No, before the half title page. So before the half title page, there's a blank page. And on that, you say, suppose Tata or whoever has bought more than 200, HSBC has bought more than 200 copies, then they will give you their logo or if they want to say compliments from whatever. So you have to print that on their 200 copies. So you plan it in the design so that you have that blank page so that you can print it. What I said was that if it's over 200 copies, the press will do that for you, where you offset it. If it's less than 200, it's not worth it for the press, so then you have to screen print individual copies. And once they land and once you have the copies, they'll be shrink wrapped from the press. The screenwriter, the screen printer opens a shrink wrap, screen prints it. After it's dried, they will shrink wrap it again. So that's how you deal with the individual branding.
So the press doing it is obviously more economical.
Yes, but screen printing is not that expensive either. You know, the gains for what you get for it is far greater than, you know, the cost is minuscule.
Depends on when you get the order. The case book is already published and someone then buys 500 copies later. You have to screen print it.
So what happened? You left the page blank if there was no.
Yeah, the books have one blank page in the beginning.
It's called end pages. End
Pages are the ones which are. Right.
It's a page where you're supposed to sign as the author. And some best wishes.
That's the page that holds the book.
Yeah.
It holds
See,
the
here
file.
it is. There is a blank.
Yeah, that's right.
In all books.
But you know, there are very interesting ways of doing this. There are, you can take, let's say if you get a corporate and if you didn't have a position of this kind, you can actually do is the dust jacket. That can be customized because the dust jacket is very much cheaper to print, and there you can brand it, rebrand it. I mean, I worked on the Jaipur book I was talking about. It's a 12 by 14 with big gatefolds and all that. It's published in '93, and I was a photographer and the writer was Amarnath. So he obviously knew people around in Jaipur. They were launching, ITC was building their first hotel there. So we took a historical angle where we had the old palace or whatever was there and how it was going to be knocked down, and this big huge building of this hotel was coming up. So you know, one of the chapters became that way because the writer was really smart, so he very smartly put it in there. And you know, ITC really bought thousands of those copies because you know it's a subtle way of doing it instead of putting a stamp on the cover. Because a lot of corporates do have that sensibility. It's about finding, and some of them they wanted like a big stamp, like author and photographers fight whose name is going to be bigger, and they all fight with me because my name is a very long name, so I try to shrink it every time.
Mine too. Yeah.
When you already had an edition of the book, what was the need to come up with the second edition?
Sold out.
It was sold out. The first edition is sold out.
It sold out, and I also wanted the book to. So that's why I also wanted a second edition, and I wanted to find an international publisher so that I could have an audience outside India. That was the main reason, and that they had sold out.
Did you replace or did you do anything in the text with the first and second edition?
No, you see, it becomes prohibitive if you're doing a second edition. If you're going to change fundamental stuff, then you might as well be doing a new book, because then the thing is that it's the printer, you already have the bulk of the design. to give to the printer. You have everything. The printer has the scans, the text, everything. Now if you change fundamentally, then you're starting from scratch. Then you have to pre-process again, you have to scan again. What I did was I used the template of the first book and I only changed the jacket, which is easier to do, and I could not add and I could not subtract, I could only replace. So I replaced a few photographs.
You couldn't add more pages?
No, because then the whole thing changes. Then you have to do everything.
Just adding to it, you're not changing anything.
Even the binding
No,
changed.
no, the pagination changes.
Yeah, pagination
All that changes.
You see, what you have in a book is something called form. And you know what you see on this page, when the pages come out of a press, you'll see page 48, 24, whatever.
It actually creates havoc if you do that.
SPN, am I right? No. Yeah. Yeah.
If you change the cover, I suppose.
Even second has to be different. Even if you change
If you change the cover, I suppose.
even second has to be different.
Where are you going, Pablo?
So I'm a photographer and I've worked 20 years in the design business. I was trained as a graphic designer, so mainly in the luxury business, and did a lot of catalogs and been quite a bit under press. I've thought a lot about books. I mean, I haven't published any books myself, but I wanted to bring the discussion maybe back to the topic of self-publishing. And as a graphic designer and now a photographer, there's a growing market out there of artist books, and nobody talked about this here, about making a book oneself. I know it's easier for a graphic designer who's been trained with a cutter and an old graphic designer, and he knows about paper and printing and stuff like that, but it seems to me that there's two discussions here. There's the discussion of, oh my God, how do I get my photographs mass published and out there and make money out of it, which most of us would never do. And how do I experience a new way of sharing my work? And I think I mean, for all the young photographers here, I think it's very easy today to build one's own book, printing it oneself, binding it, and starting from small and scarcity. I just wanted to give an example of back home in Switzerland. There are a few people who have found a market for artist books. And I was approached a few years ago by two ladies in Geneva who basically are building artist books, a very, very short production, and are selling them each for $3,000 a piece. So there's a real market for artist books. And today you can sell them yourselves. And instead of going to the way of mass production, go the other way, explore the other way, scarcity. Make small, self-made, beautiful books. I have drawers full of books. I love the book. The speaker, was it Dianita? Is that it? She obviously lives with her photographs. And the books and the printed page is a way of living with your photographs. And I just love it myself. And this is a very good way of sharing, a very cheap way of sharing. Get a basic printer. Paper is available out there. Even a laser printer can do that. I do a lot of stuff with a laser printer. And I do get the wow effect, and I can share my work like that. So I would encourage those who won't have access right away to large publishing and printers and publishers and whatever. Start small. Build your own book. Take a bookbinding class. Learn how to do Japanese stitching. And it's very enjoyable, and you get the experience of the book quite quickly.
That's a great
Just wanted to share that.
Glad you brought that up, because I was talking with Soni and Kate just before this, and one of the exhibitions, Memento Mori by Gregorius de Curse, which is there on a flat table right here. It's actually a limited edition book, and it's single pages in an archival box, printed on archival paper like photographs, and he sells that. So, there are many ways. I personally have explored the ideas, like you said, looking at handmade paper, how do I use bamboo to put this together. I've not produced anything else, but as yet, but I've been thinking about it for the last 3-4 years, and maybe another 10 years later I'll probably come up with something. But, I think it's a very, very valid way to go, and like I was saying, that one does not negate the other, I mean, like, you may want to publish, print offset and have
1,000 copies, 2,000 copies of a book and try to market it the traditional way, and at the same time have the same material available as a limited edition book in one form. It could be bound, it could be used. I think Samar has tried something of that sort, and it probably might, each one might cross sort of finance the other. So it's a great idea to look at that.
It's a great idea. It's a very good suggestion. My thing about mass producing books is because I've grown up with the idea that books transcend borders, that books are around forever, and that you can reach someone who you don't know, a stranger, with a book, which doing limited edition prints sort of gives you a limited audience. That's the big difference. And for me, both are perfectly valid. I'm not saying one over the other. I'm just telling you my reason for going the way I did, because I wanted to reach people that I didn't know, and that the book might move them, without my knowing them.
I totally agree with you, but the only thing is, my point of view is that today is this sort of gold rush. I mean, driven by all these electronic devices, iPad and stuff, there's a real gold rush, an illusionary gold rush of people putting in our minds the idea that we can become millionaires with our books. It's really wrong.
No,
so, I mean, you have to...
I don't think we are all aware of it.
Oh, you're aware of it.
I'm very aware.
So you're the crazy ones, okay.
I'm still trying to sell you books so I can pay for my plane ticket, so...
So please buy the book. She can't go back.
I don't think anyone's suggesting that anyone's millions out of books at all.
It's just the audience that you want to reach, and whether you want to reach a large audience or a more exclusive audience. It's also what I said, Mr. Shanbach of Strand Bookstall, his philosophy was that you price low and you reach a larger audience, or you price high and you reach an exclusive audience. I happen to agree with his philosophy, which was pricing low and reaching a larger audience. That's my personal take, but it's not to say mine is right or someone else's, it's just a personal opinion and a personal way of looking at the world.
Like to talk to younger people, this is all about that, okay, one day maybe I'll have a book of my own. But how do you go through the process? I think, that's important. The technicalities, the business, all that is one part of it. But one thing is very important, that when you, especially, I started doing publishing because I used to think that I do an architecture book, then I'll go to the hotel guys and show them that, hey, this is the kind of stuff I do, and I'll get hotel commission. And that's how you work. But the problem is such a trap, because they look at you and they say, oh, you do books, forget it, you can't understand commercial photography, So that trap is always there. But let's say if you do decide to do whichever way it is, e-publishing or larger publisher or whatever, once you sorted that out, most critical thing is that the actual creative process of it, because the problem is with most of the creative people is that you're so close to work, and you're so defensive, and you think this is the way the sequencing should be, this is how the pages, or this is how I see my important pictures to be out there. I think you got to be very good with listening. I mean, I've been going to Frankfurt Book Fair not because every year I publish a book, but you just go and see what is out there, looking at other people's books, looking at, obviously you go on the net and all that stuff. But when you actually start the process of actually doing a book, it's really critical that you talk to, like the graphic design there, people like that who can actually help you edit, who can help you layout, who can help you in tying up, whether it's who's going to write the forward for your book, who's going to write an essay, what kind of collaboration you do. These are really very critical elements for the success of the book, because when you have those things in place, then finding a publisher is much, much easier. Instead of just taking, loads of things and maybe just doing a small dummy and going to publisher and saying, hey, listen, can you publish this for us? It really looks half-baked stuff,
Any more questions? Soni, anything more to say?
No, thank you all for coming, and I know that this is kind of an antiquated way of making books, but I did publish my book a long time ago in 2000. So.